guys, how's it going? Welcome to this week's recap video. We've had a beautiful week, a beautiful October.
Warmer than usual weather?
Yeah, the 10 days shows highs in the 70s, lows in the mid 40s, like for all 10 days. It's amazing. I'm loving it because it's giving us extra time to get things planted, extra time for people to hopefully finish their projects.
What is it about contractors and landscapers? Everybody, they have a bunch of people, and instead of just getting one done, they like to spend 2 days here, 2 days at the next job, 2 days at the next job, and they're trying to keep everybody happy.
But in the
end,
meantime,
they're kind of upsetting everybody.
Yeah.
But it's like a common thing. I remember I worked construction for a short time, less than a year, and we did that. We would literally go. I mean, I was just like a gopher, I was like 16 or 17, and we would go to somebody's house. We would do like an hour's worth of work. And then we'd go somewhere else. And I always thought that feels so inefficient because you're spending the majority of your time driving from job to job. You're not getting anything done.
Well, it makes me think that those people, those business owners, are missing an opportunity to expand. Like if you have so much work.
I think you can't hire workers. I think that's the biggest problem. I think that's always been the problem is that you can never find enough labor.
I suppose that's right. We're so lucky with who we have helping us here that I forget that there are. And we struggled a bit before we had have the crew that we have right now. I kind of forget that. I should not forget that.
Yeah.
I think, though, in tomorrow's video, you're going to see the destruction of the boxwood circle hedge. Okay, so in that video, before I started my project, which was planting garlic, which if you watch our videos, you've already seen this one. But I did a tour of the Hartley area. The crew was actually out there working on the bricks. They are so close to being done. That's why I'm like, what?
Yeah.
Like, you have the product here. We bought the bricks apart from you. Like, we have your supplies here. So come back. Anyway, so they were working on that. And Chad, at the same time, was working in the back garden and scraping all of the old grass, clearing out that one flower bed. Yeah, Aaron is so excited about it. Clearing out the boxwood hedge for the most part, the fountain, all of that business.
Are you sad about it?
Yeah, well, kind of not.
Really?
It's weird. That day,
you feel like you should be sad?
Maybe. I don't know. I feel like it's some guilt, a guilt complex.
Like you should feel some guilt about
it. I told Aaron I can't look. I can't be back there. I can't be looking at it. I need to stay busy somewhere else because, it's not an easy thing to do necessarily. It is for Aaron, but it's not easy, I don't think, for a lot of us, who don't really care for like a ton of change.
I think I'm too pragmatic.
Yeah, you are.
Once I've set my mind that I want a certain thing or, I want a certain change, then it's like you just do it. You do whatever destruction is necessary to get to that change that you're trying to achieve.
It is looking like, I don't know, I feel like every time I drag my feet, every time you're like, it's going to be better. It's going to be better once it's gone. And then once those things are gone, I'm like, oh yeah. Now I can see this area in a new light. And we should have some loads of compost here by the end of the week. We're going to spread the whole area, like kind of just mulch it with compost. So it will look tidy and clean. We'll cover up the powder that, we're exposing right now. Anyway, all that said, I don't know where I was going with that. It's a beautiful week. Yeah. And we do have some friends coming they came into town last night. So we are going to be doing some garden projects with them. They've come to help us with garden projects. They're going to help us plant bulbs and probably spread compost and all that stuff. So you'll see them in videos here pretty quick. So let's just jump into the videos from this past week, starting with decking out our back porch for fall. That project snowballed so much. I thought, we had pumpkins that we harvested the day before. I just needed a few more decorative type because I didn't grow any like sweetmeat squash or Cinderella pumpkins or anything like that. So we wanted to go to the farm stand, and we took Samantha with us that time because the time before we only took Benjamin. And it was a really fun day. We picked out a whole bunch of stuff. The kids were into it. And then we put out some lanterns. I had intended on only planting pansies along that walkway, and I ended up planting 5 different varieties of perennial and pansies and a cabbage. So anyway, it was a very fun project. Gabriella said, I love how you always decorate. Thank you. Have you ever made a scarecrow or a straw man? I'm trying to remember if I actually did. I don't think I've made a traditional scarecrow. I've saved clothes, though, some of mine that I was going to get rid of. Because, I have like a lot of button-up shirts and some are plaid. And so I think that would be, I have a plaid shirt saved back.
Yeah.
I thought I was going to donate this, but I think it would be really great for a a Scarecrow at some point. I did, however, one year down at the garden center, I did the yellow brick road and a Wizard of Oz theme for our window display for fall. And I made like not life size. The windows are pretty tall, but as tall as the windows could hold. I did the Tin Man, the Scarecrow, the Lion, and then I did the Wicked Witch and Dorothy. I think that's all we did because they were kind of intense. So I did do the Scarecrow, Wizard of Oz style. No munchkins, I don't think. But it was an interesting window display because I used all supplies that we had at the garden center. I don't think I bought anything. So I just scrounged around for stuff.
They have a lot of random stuff there.
They do. It's awesome, though. And that's why I'm always a little bit reluctant to get rid of piles of things like piles of scrap wood. And because I used to rummage around and stuff like that all the time.
Yeah.
I don't decorate our windows like that now. But like I used cardboard that I painted to look like a yellow brick road that kind of, did that swoop thing on the bottom of the windows. And yeah. Fun memories. Shelley said how adorable the kids are, so sweet and helpful. It all came out so beautifully. Where do you get those beautiful lanterns? I had picked those up just a few days prior. I hadn't planned on buying them, but Aaron and I went to Home Depot for something. Can't remember what we went for, and they had this big clearance section of all their summer stuff, their outdoor summer stuff, and they were in there for $19 a piece. Pretty good sized lanterns. I thought, I don't think I'll find that sort of deal on lanterns that look like this, that are this big. So I bought all of them that they had. It was perfect. They had 6, and I kind of needed 6. I had intended on putting them on the stairs, and then I realized I actually have 4 stairs, not just 3. So anyway, it worked great along the pathway. Kathy said, I was wondering when the men were building your stone wall, did they use any cement to hold it together? No, it's dry stacked, which I'm thankful for because we swapped a few things out. SZ said, the pumpkin decoration, what do people do after Halloween? Isn't this a lot of food waste? For us, especially in a year where it's so darn mild, I'll be able to pull all of the ones that are good for eating, because some aren't that great for eating. Those are more for decorative purposes. But the ones that are good for eating will end up in our root cellar. As long as they're not subjected to a bunch of frost, then they're usually fine to pull and save. A lot of people will open them up, though, and just leave them out in their yard for wildlife to feed on, that sort of thing. And I think some of them get composted, and some of them get tossed. One year, when we lived in our very first apartment, do you remember somebody grabbed our pumpkin, one of them at least, and smashed it in the street? And I was so sad.
Yeah.
I was like, why would somebody do that to me?
Probably just some kids being dumb.
Probably. But I was sad about that. We did live on a busy road. So at least our pumpkins aren't getting smashed at this point. That's good. Catherine said, love the new stone wall / ledge. Did you have to bring up the soil? What's the impact of the trees and plants? We did not have to bring up the soil. There was enough of a, grade, I guess, to create those walls and especially, where that leaning tower of pavers was, that was a retaining wall. So that flower bed was already built up. But down the sidewalk, it's amazing how, we had to back the rocks a little bit with soil because it created a little gap, but it didn't mess with the level of the soil in the flower beds at all, which is amazing. They needed to be there, the rock walls. There needed to be something because every time we would water, not with a drip system, but if I came through with a hose to do some supplemental water for something new that was planted, mulch would just wash onto the sidewalks, which is kind of a pain. So it worked out great. Maria said, what is the name of the large flat pumpkins that are stackable? Okay, so there's Cinderella's, there's Fairy Tale, there's, you know what you should do? You should get on Johnny's Seeds website and Baker Creek Seeds or rareseeds.com, I think is what it's called. And you can go through their squash and pumpkin section and you can find all kinds of different flat pumpkins because there's white ones, pink ones, tan ones, green ones, orange ones, all kinds of different things. I can't remember all the names. I've grown a lot of them. Alex said, have you considered resurfacing stairs with stone? We have. We've thought about doing brick.
Yeah. Well, we could do the same thin brick that we did on the greenhouse.
Because it matches the brick we're using in the
I wonder if it'd be too much brick. It might look nice. What we probably need to do is get we probably still have some extra thin brick. And we should just set it on there. Yeah. And just kind of see what it looks like. We kind of got through through the majority of that project, and I was like, oh, we didn't really think about the stairs. Should we have pulled those out and had new stairs put in that kind of match better or whatever?
I just don't think through stuff like that. It's not my jam. I'm kind of like, let's go through the project and figure out everything we did wrong and then fix it in the end, which is bad.
What's really difficult with projects is how many times your project butts into another thing, and you're like, well, this other project is maybe like 2 to 5 years out.
Yeah, well, that's what happened with this one.
Yeah.
We kind of had to trench through there in order to make the Hartley a habitable place for plants and humans, you know.
Well, just to get power to it.
Yeah, we had to blow through that sidewalk, which we had planned on doing at some point, but not this year.
Right.
So it just kind of, every project snowballs, I think. And in the end, once you're past, you know, the dust settles and stuff, you're thankful that you did it and just went ahead with it. But every once in a while,
right now we're at such a crossroads with the house because so much of the house needs to be updated. Like, we've got bathrooms that haven't been updated since like pre-1980s, or maybe like the 80s was the last time.
To give you an example of like how old some of our stuff is in the house, one of the kids' bathroom, we did replace the toilet because it was like olive green with a wood seat. It was horrible. And the bathtub is still kind of a brown, and it's just like an insert. And we were talking about it the other night. I'm like, we could just get a new insert that's not expensive, but at least it would be white.
Yeah.
But the faucet, so the faucet has like a bunch of hard water around the bottom that it's impossible to get it off. And it looked like a little piece of the metal was kind of like sticking out. And I thought, well, I don't want that in there if the kids are in there taking baths. So I just grabbed it and I thought I'd just peel that little piece off, and it created a hole in the front of the faucet, so like water's running down, but now water's also shooting straight out at the same time. So it's time. One of our bathrooms has big glass blocks for the shower.
80s.
Yeah.
So I guess I say that like there's a lot of projects that are like, well, do we, how far do we go, and do we do one room at a time, or do you try to do the whole house and maybe move some walls around? It's really difficult because then there's the whole money situation, and like, well, can we afford to do everything all at once, or do we need to piece it out?
I prefer piecing things out. That is my MO. You would prefer knocking the whole thing down and starting over, probably.
Yeah, if there was enough money. But that's the kicker, is like just making sure that you can actually do a whole. Yeah. And then you got to live somewhere else, or do like half the house at one.
Let's just leave everything the way it is.
Yeah,
it's fine.
We just won't mess with it.
It's fine. Seasons with Anthony said, "How much do decorative pumpkins cost in your area?" And I can honestly say I am not 100% sure, but I think the decorative pumpkins were like 39 or 49 cents per pound, which I think is pretty good, right? I mean, I wish I would have paid attention to that. I just had a very specific goal in mind when we went, and I knew that,
Do you pay attention to things like gas prices?
I don't pay attention to gas at all, and I know a lot of you do because a lot of you drive a lot, but we hardly drive at all. So it's not a factor for us. I mean, we go to Boise on occasion.
Yeah.
On occasion.
Yeah.
And then we'll like go to our parents' homes or go out to dinner or go to the store. We do drives in the evenings, but not as much as we used to now that Samantha's older.
We don't put a lot of miles on our vehicles, for sure. It's, to me, I don't look at gas prices either, just because of that. And also because like you need gas. And so it's like, I never, my dad price shops. Like, he always knows, Costco's cheaper, which it is.
Yeah.
But we don't have a Costco anywhere nearby. So you have to already be like 40 minutes away from the house to get the cheaper gas. I don't know.
But you guys, the owner of the farm stand we go to, the Red Barn Produce, there's a couple of really good farm stands in our area. There's Red Barn and then also Purdum's Produce, which I think we've been to before in a video. They just don't have as good of hours. They're closed like Sunday, Monday, and Tuesday. And we always seem to go on a Tuesday to the farm stand. I don't know, but Anna is the owner and she's so sweet. And she is always giving us stuff, like giving us jars of things.
The Red Barn, not
Red Barn, yeah. Yeah, she's always given us preserves and produce, like she gave us a basket of plums and apples. She gives the kids little toys. It's just fun. I don't know. She just seems to really enjoy when people come and visit her stand. So that's a fun one to support. Next video was huge butternut squash harvest. Holy cow. 64 butternuts on 2 individual plants. It wasn't 2 hills where there was like 3 or 4 seeds planted. It was 2 plants, and there's still probably 5 or 6 left out there. I looked at them yesterday. The vines that I like heaped up in the center, they look pretty crummy, but surprisingly enough, the one vine that's kind of supporting most of these butternuts that are still trying to ripen out there, still looking green and vibrant. So I'm just leaving them alone for now. But we did an orchard grass update to begin with in that video, though. I just wanted to show you where things are at. It's looking gorgeous. It's one of my favorite spots on our whole property. It feels like home to me because it feels like there's something about my parents' home, the home I grew up in. I still feel like it's my home in a way. That there's a lot of natural touches as well. There's a lot less like formality, I guess. They love formal gardens, but the way the garden is set up, it's just a different feel from what we have. And it just makes me, I don't know, the orchard just brings me back to what maybe our orchard looked like back in the day. And then I did chicken coop window box planting, where I just took the 3 geraniums that I had in there, potted them up. They're doing great in the Hartley. And I just put some pansies and little cabbage, or I think they were little kale, in there. Pretty simple, but it just kind of cleaned it up a little bit. I did some grooming on plants up there as well. SA Rosa 85 said, do you have any plans to prune or clean up the pear/rose hips/grapevine area on the newest property? I'd love to watch the process of reclaiming and cleaning an overgrown area. I have no plans of doing that. I kind of just want, at this point, I kind of just want things to do what they're doing back there. It's just kind of this magical space that I love. I feel like that's the type of space as a kid I loved. Going down into the draws behind our house, I spent a ton of time down there, and it was completely natural. Big ponds, a creek ran through it. I'm surprised, things were different. Things were different when we were little. I got to do a lot of things that these days I'd be like, Benjamin's not doing that.
Right.
Times
were different. Tablets didn't exist. Phones didn't exist.
Yeah.
There were less things. Entertainment is maybe more accessible now. I remember, our parents would even put the TV away, during the summer. They just put it away.
Where?
And, in a closet. Well, and they were so small back then. Everybody had
ours was like this.
Yeah, the square Magnavox TV. Yeah. And you just did other stuff. You just had to go outside. Figure out something to do.
I really enjoyed it though, and it felt a lot like that area does. So I imagine that our kids will like to explore that area later on. Stormy said no snakes. There are snakes, but they're not. We have rattlesnakes in our area, but not down here. They're usually up in the hills a little bit, kind of more in the desert areas. Down here, we get garden snakes, little, they're not huge. We did have that one, what's it called? Bull snake? Is that right?
I don't know. I don't know my snakes.
I don't know my snakes either, but remember, it was this big around. And it curved, the big black clay pot, well, it's brown, but they call it black clay pot that our Blood Good Japanese maple is in. That's usually back by the kitchen entrance there on that patio area. So that pot is this big around, and this snake was curved around the base of this pot. I couldn't see where it started, and I couldn't see where it ended. And it was back on our patio at our townhouse. Oh. And I called you, and I was like, I'm not scared of snakes and things.
As long as normally, they're not too big.
Well, yeah. I don't mind the little ones at all. In fact, when I find one out in the garden, which we're finding more and more, I get the kids outside because I want them to see it. It's really a neat thing. But that big one, I'm like, oh, I've never seen something that big in our garden space.
What's funny is that some people are just they don't even like you talking about snakes.
I know, I'm sorry. I can understand that.
And photos of snakes or spiders, they're just nope.
It's like talking to me about flying in an airplane. Yeah. Yeah. Same. Your mom was talking about how she'll have a little stool that if she's doing some jobs in the garden that's at seated level, she'll just pull a stool along with her. And so she was sitting doing something, and she looked up, and there's a shrub right in front of her, and there's a snake looking right out at her face. I think she went in at that point.
Yeah.
She's like, I'm done. I'm done for the day. That would probably freak me out. Jerry said, love you and your family. Appreciate your expertise. Do you have a video of the chicken coop? Would love to see inside and your chickens. I know that we've been inside the chicken coop at some point. Right, Aaron? There's some video that exists somewhere where
Yeah, there was a winter video where you
we
kind of talked about it.
We put
but
the plexi
you really should do an updated one at some point.
I know,
That'd be a good idea.
Yeah. I'll add that to it.
Maybe next time it needs to be cleaned out.
Okay.
We should film a video and just show the whole process because you've got a couple of years under your belt now.
Yeah, and my chickens are awesome. So I got that first load. I got 10 chickens, and I bought them as what do they call them? Pullets. Is that right? When they're a little bit older, I did not want to do the chick phase thing. And they all arrived healthy and beautiful. They all grew to adult size. And they were all starting to lay eggs. And then one by one, the chickens would start losing mobility in their legs. It was weird. I had two experienced bird people come in and check my coop, check the chickens, make sure, like, what am I missing? Is it something environmental? Is it something like, what's going on? And neither of them could pinpoint. They were like, everything looks great. And even the chickens look good. There's no sign, like, everything looked healthy. You know, their combs, everything looked healthy. And so one by one, I lost them all down to Beverly. Beverly is still one of the original 10 that I got for the coop, which I'm not glad that they passed, but 10 I think is just it's too much. We don't need that many eggs, and it's too much for that space because we don't free range our chickens, because our livelihood comes from a nice garden. The chickens would decimate that. 4 is perfect. So I have Beverly, who's one of the original, and then I bought 3 adults. They're the copper marrons. Is that how you say it? Bought those from a friend here locally. Actually, the friend who has our tool shed now, who uses it, I think, as a bunny hutch. Yeah. Anyway, those girls came from her, and they were already laying at the time, and they integrated great, and they've been just perfect. They've made it through a couple of winters, and they're just doing great. So yeah, we'll add that to a video here pretty soon. Mary said, are you collecting seeds from your zinnias? They're beautiful. I thought about it because we thought one of the ideas for the new property was to do a giant field of zinnias out there.
The new property.
The new property. I think that would be gorgeous. And in that case, I don't care what color they are. I think because I plant so many varieties so close together, we'll probably deal with some, like, I'm not sure I would get true to varieties, true to their variety they are this year because of cross-pollination. But I don't think I would care. Honestly, I'm kind of like caring less and less about the varieties I have out there anyway. Like, I see a lot of new varieties coming out, and I'm like, that looks really similar to the variety I had this year. Do I care about ordering the new one? I don't know. I think it's just like the mood right now. And it's been such a relaxed year out there. I feel like, I don't know, whatever goes. Wasn't the question, but the question was collecting seeds. So yeah, if we collected seeds, we could probably outfit that whole field plus more with what we've got out there. Daisy said, what variety of butternut squash is this? All the tag said was butternut. That is it. It did not give a variety name, unfortunately, but just butternut.
Do you ever wonder where the mass goes? So, like, you're taking that many butternut squash away from, it came from the earth, right?
Yeah.
And if you were to, like, dig up that amount of dirt, you'd have, like, a big hole. Where did it all come from?
What do you mean?
Like this, so
the seed, like, soaks in all of this nutrients, the roots do?
Yeah, but, like, just, like, how did you weigh how much the butternut squash were? How many were there again?
64.
64. Okay, so, like, if you dug up that same mass amount of dirt from that location, you'd have a big hole.
Yeah.
So if you had that amount of dirt, but, like, it's just weird that, like, you don't have a hole out there that looks like nothing changed.
Right.
That's weird to me.
Never really thought about it.
Like there's no indent in the ground or something. Like it
took from the earth.
Yeah,
to
it took
create
from the earth
its
to
mass.
create this mass of butternut squash, and you took them away from that space. But really, it looks like nothing changed. It's just weird to me.
That is weird.
Same with trees. Like a big, huge tree will grow up, like a massive tree, but that space like isn't indented. It's like it looks like it didn't even take it from the earth.
What does it mean?
What does it mean?
What does this mean?
Well, I do know like microbes and stuff are moving nutrients, and so the earth is shifting. It's not. So I think that's what it is that the soil's moving around.
Interesting thought, Erin. Interesting. Evelyn said, have you ever thought about putting some birdhouses in your garden since you're getting more birds there? That would look nice throughout the garden. Yes. I was just thinking, I didn't think particularly about a birdhouse, but you remember that bird feeder that we had near the chicken coop, like in between the chicken coop and the Hartley? It was on a fence post out there. I walked by it yesterday, and I thought, I've got to get that up before winter so that we can get a post set in the ground and probably some concrete. That feeder was loaded all the time. The thing about it is I've got to find a spot that's centrally located. Like, it would look awesome out in the cut flower garden, but I don't want to tromp all the way out there to fill it up, because it needs needs to be filled. like once or twice a day in the wintertime for those birds. They're so ravenous. So I need to figure out a spot to put it where we can see it from the windows and really enjoy. And it's a beautiful feeder too. What's it called? Do you remember? It's from Gardener's Supply, but it's got the beautiful like shake roof, and then
we can put it on the screen.
Yeah, it's really pretty. Tina said, "Can we get an aerial view of the new grass path areas?"
Soon. They're just like, it's not going to look great, especially pointed down,
Right.
because it looks fine if you get real low on it and kind of look across it. But here pretty soon it'll look good.
I think next year when it fills in and like all those little spots, because typically you have to reseed like little spots here and there, or you wait till the grass fills in. We're also dealing like where some paths are colliding, the coverage isn't quite right.
Right. We'll have to adjust that, or
some
have Benny's
stuff.
guys come put different nozzles on there or something.
Yeah. Sure, they'll be thrilled about that.
Yeah.
Next video, planting simple fall containers and a ton of hellebores. So the 2 little iron urns that usually live on the back shade porch stairs, we're not going to put any pots there anymore because the water drainage there, it just like there's low spots on those stairs and they collect the water and it just looks messy and it stains them. So I moved those out to the end of the pathway right by the driveway and just put some sedum, pansies, and kale in there, just leftovers from other projects. I think they turned out cute. Mm-hmm. They look just very fresh. And then I got a bunch of hellebores in like small sizes, and I planted all those, 40 of them, underneath the maple tree. I think that'll be pretty. The reason why, like, part of me wants to fill that out with like some beautiful oak leaf hydrangeas and white burnums and stuff like that. It's a pretty shaded area. But I want to be able to still look under that maple tree and see out to the raised bed vegetable garden. I think that's such a beautiful look. So I want to plant some things that are lower so we can still have that view. Whitney said, "I got some beautiful hellebores, but then read that they are poisonous to dogs and people, and that even touching them can cause contact dermatitis. Have you experienced this?" No, I haven't. You know, I don't typically worry too much about poisonous plants because, we'll teach our kids to stay away from, eating things from poisonous plants, but that's how I was raised. We don't want to bubble them too much and kind of share the dangers of some of those things with them, what to avoid, what to watch for. Definitely, if you deal with contact dermatitis with those, and I've never heard that, but it's probably a thing, probably not a wonderful thing to have in your garden, but I don't worry about dogs and cats around poisonous plants. I think they have instincts, and most animals, I don't know, maybe some of you guys have animals that like to eat everything. I've heard of that too. We grew up with dogs and cats. I've never experienced an animal eating something poisonous. It's like there's something built in to them. Yeah. Like they know not to eat certain things. I've never had one of our cats eat on hellebores. My parents haven't all throughout all those years.
And working at the vet.
Working at the vet. I worked at a vet clinic for 5.5 years and never had a animal brought in for ingesting a plant that was poisonous. Ingesting a bag of chocolate, yes, but not a plant. Angie said, "I love hellebores. Where did you get the 24 packs? I've never seen them sold like that." So those were sent to me by one of the perennial supplier for Proven Winners. And they were Proven Selections. I didn't know that they had them in that line. Yeah. I got the tags separately from the plants, and it was interesting. I'm like, maybe Proven Winners is going to be adding some that are really good into their line. So it'll be interesting to see how these grow. I do have experience with like the Spanish flare as part of the mix. I already have one of those in another location. And I'm not sure they should offer them like that. What a wonderful way to receive like some of those plants that take a long time to grow and take a long time to bloom. They're just more expensive than other perennials. And so to be able to get them small, maybe they're going to start offering them like that because I think that would, make them cheaper for sure because you're getting them smaller, but more accessible. I don't know.
Sure.
Thoughts?
Yeah, I wonder if there's a market.
I know there's a market for that. People would love that. I love that.
I love digging enough of a market.
I love digging small enough holes, or smaller holes.
Right. And
being able to plant 40 things in like 15 minutes.
I wonder if it's profitable though.
Oh. Well, maybe.
Because I know you have to pay breeders like a breeder's fee or whatever. So like when a company buys a plant from a breeder to start, producing it, the breeder will set the rate. And sometimes that means that they either will or won't buy it. Because if a breeder sets too high of a price, then it's like, okay, well, we can't make money on that, so we're not even going to buy it from you. But if they can negotiate, so I don't know what the breeder fee is. It could be like pennies per plant or $1 per, I don't even know what they set.
Yeah.
But I'm assuming it's per plant.
Penelope said, you mentioned that when you first plant something like your hellebores, you check them for the first few days. Do you feel the soil? Do you dig a little to see if the drip is dripping? I basically look at the plant. The plant will tell me if it's getting enough water. If I see it start to flag or wilt a little bit, then I'll add extra water. I watered those, let's see, the day we planted them, and I watered them by hand 2 days after as well, and I haven't watered them since, and none of them are wilting because there's drip in that area already. I think they're getting enough coverage. They're not a super water hungry plant anyway, which is great. So that's another good reason to plant them in your shade garden. Debbie said, wondering what happened to your Kinsley ghost honeysuckle. It took us a while, but we found one and are enjoying it. Yeah, so we had them along our front fence line, and they are living on at a friend's house. So they were dug up. They were very established. So I was a little nervous for them, but I mean, may as well try to dig them up and move them, you know. So we will have those again one day once I've got a spot picked out for them. They do need something to climb on, so it's something to consider. Proven selections, what's that? Not winners, runners up, second place, first place losers. They're still winners. They are. I don't know, how do you explain the proven selections versus the proven winners?
Okay, so I think this is how it's been explained to me, is that proven winners plants are generally all plants that are in the proven winners line that can generally grow in the 48 states.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Proven selections are maybe plants that are more regional or not in the proven winners line, but
or there's not anything particularly amazing, maybe.
Yeah, it's maybe
if you
like
stack
an open,
it up to another variety.
It's an open variety
Yeah.
that like anyone can grow.
Mm-hmm.
And so, you know, like that happens with like Monrovia a lot, where Monrovia will be growing a plant and they don't own it. They don't have an exclusive right to it. Other people can grow it too. Mm-hmm. Or maybe they'll have like a single year exclusive right to it. Mm-hmm. And then it's up, or, you know, however that works. So I think that's kind of the same with proven selections, is they're either like open varieties that anyone can grow, or things that they're testing, or just regional plants.
Yeah, sometimes the selections will bump up into the winners line, but it's got to exhibit characteristics that nothing else out there does. It's got to have something really special about it, or really tough about it, or versatile about it, or something, versus other ones to be bumped up into the actual winners line. It takes a long time, the process does.
Yeah.
And some things do end up going out of the proven winners line too, if something better comes up.
Yeah.
That like a new variety that's been bred, and then all of a sudden, like, it's more resistant to powdery mildew than something that looks extremely similar. It happens in Supertunias quite often, like Supertunia Royal Velvet improved. Mm-hmm. You know, it'll have a better branching habit, more flower power, whatever, you know, than the previous variety. They're constantly working on improving them. So anyway, it's interesting process. Rhonda said, how did Laura end up with that empty flower bed? I remember she said they did have to remove the boxwood hedge by the new sidewalk, but wasn't the rest of the bed full? No, it's never really been full. It's had hostas in it, but the hostas go away by this time of year.
It has a lot of bulbs.
It has a ton of bulbs, like 1,000 at least daffodils in that bed. So it does look very full in the spring, and then it starts to like peter a little bit. It's been one of those areas that I've kind of, there are a few flower beds I just haven't done a lot in, kind of like the back garden, because I know it was going to change. And I was a little reluctant to plant under the maple because I knew we were going to change the back area, but we ended up taking the walkway the same way out. So we're going to keep that flower bed the way it is. So now I feel like I can start filling it in and not have to worry about moving a bunch of stuff later.
Well, you've got those boxwoods sitting there.
Yeah.
To complete the
right.
The hedge.
You just got to do that.
Yeah.
Those can be planted anytime.
Yeah.
Next video was making some bouquets for some special people. So Bethany, who works here for us part-time, she knew a man. I knew of him. I didn't know him personally, but his mission in life was to make people smile, and he'd do that by giving away flowers. And he passed away in a car accident last year about this time, you know, unexpectedly, suddenly. It was just a horrible, horrible thing. And Bethany kind of wanted to let or keep his memory alive, or what legacy. Is that? Legacy going, by giving away flowers to people that his daughter thought he would like to receive flowers. Boy, I feel like I'm explaining that so poorly, but anyway, so she talked to me about it, and I asked her if she was going to pick the bouquets. I'm like, well, can I do that part? I'll do that part. You guys can go deliver, but if I could be involved in any way and pick the flowers and make the bouquets, that would be a really fun opportunity for me, and spend some time doing that for, you know, other people. I think that's a good thing to do, and I thought you guys might like to see it. And it was a fun project. It really was. So we did 24 bouquets, dahlias, cosmos, zinnias, I didn't use any like green fillers. I used all flowers in them, and it was fun, and they turned out really bright and pretty. Sky1+1 said, do you have bugs in the dahlias? Mine always have earwigs hiding in the petals. No. I mean, knock on wood, this is the first year we've dealt with powdery mildew on our dahlias late in the season. Thankfully, they didn't have it all season, but no insect pressure, no aphids, no earwigs, none of that, which is great. They're completely clean. Monique said, if you only had one raised bed, like those in your vegetable patch by the barn, what flowers would you plant for the year to have some variety, but making use of the tiny space? Would you do a mass planting of the same type of flower seeds, or would you do a little bit of everything? Like we have got a 3x6, so maybe in a 3x6 bed. Oh boy. I would, if I could only plant one thing. Or I guess I could plant a variety of things.
You only have one bed.
One bed.
You can do
that's
anything
right.
you want in one bed.
In one bed, right. What would I plant? Things get so big that it would be really hard to do a variety. I mean, you could do a couple of dahlias in one end and make sure they're staked. Zinnias for sure. They really throw out flowers all season long, and they look good for most of the season. Cosmos are awesome, but they do get quite large. You could get some smaller ones.
Would you do square foot gardening?
No, because you need to give those plants room to produce, like to get big and produce. Otherwise, you're like keeping things too. It's not like a square foot gardening works great for things that you're harvesting on the regular, you know. But if you're wanting something to really like have a lot of light and airflow and all of that, so the plant itself can be productive, you really can't smash them in together too much. It's kind of like the calendula. Zeolite's calendula self-seeded in one of our beds, and I just let it go this year. It's so thick in there. I think the plants would be way more productive. They are throwing out flowers, but I think they'd be more productive if I'd go in there and thin them out. But I looked at them this year. I'm like, well, I let you have this year. But I don't really want to have that in that raised bed every single year, so I'll probably cull that out. I don't know.
Did you answer the question?
Did what now?
Did you answer the question?
Didn't I?
I don't think you did.
I said a couple dahlias at one end.
Oh, okay.
Then some zinnias.
So you would split it up.
I would probably try to get some variety in there. Yeah. Dahlia said, Dahlia? It's a dahlia without an H. Have you ever grown chocolate cosmos? They also smell like chocolate. I have before, and they do smell like chocolate. They're beautiful. Sharon said, Laura, could you tell me where you purchased the windows in the garden shed and the name of them? Oh, I'd have to ask Eddie.
Did he buy them?
He bought them. He bought them online. It was an online resource. They're wood. I wanted windows that were wood, real wood, and I wanted the panes to be not the panes. Sorry.
It's okay.
Okay. The cross wood pieces. What are those called? They have got a name. I want to say like bullion, but it's not. What are those called?
I don't know.
Mullions.
Mullions.
I was so close. Window mullions versus window muntins, are they different? Muntin refers to the vertical dividers that separate glass panes in a window.
I'd rather have bullions.
Mullions are the vertical bars. So we have muntins and mullions, right? Anyway, it took them a while to find real wood ones where those were exposed. Those come out farther than the panes of glass. Anyway, I'll have to get the name from Eddie because I'm not sure. Victoria said, when are you guys going to start your compost project? You should just put up a 3-sided loosely fenced area in the new property and just use it as a dump pile for all your garden waste. I would sprinkle the leftover soil you dump out of baskets in it also. You would be happy how fast you will create beautiful soil for yourself.
Okay, so we're waiting until we get water out on the new property. There's always like one thing that we're waiting on.
Yeah.
And it'll probably be till next spring or beyond even. But I do kind of want to do it, but you have to have water. You have to wet the pile down because if you don't have moisture, it doesn't work, right? And we don't get enough rain.
Right.
So I think we can still do it, but we just got to we don't have water. I don't want to put the compost pile right on the fence, like right next to our current property.
Uh-huh.
I want to put it far in the back.
Yeah.
So it's kind of out of sight, sort of. So that's what we're waiting on. Water.
Yep. Jake said, just out of curiosity, how much did those jars cost? They cost me $0. I think they cost Bethany $0 too. I think they were all food jars. And I think one of her daughters cleaned them all, got them all really spick and span.
Where'd they come from?
I think she just gathered them up, like donations from people.
Oh.
Yeah. They weren't like ball or mason jars. So, yeah. Barbara said, love this project, but I'm left wondering, how will Bethany transport all those gorgeous arrangements? So you know those bulb crates that we have, the black crates that our bulbs come in, which we got our bulb order, you guys, and I think we're going to start working, even though it's still kind of warm, I think we're going to start working on getting those in the ground here very soon. Anyway, those bulb crates are awesome because you can put like 4 or 5 arrangements in there, and then you put burlap around the jars. So it keeps them steady, and you can just pick up the whole crate and put it in your car. Pretty nice. Okay, the last video from this week was planting roses. I had 3 varieties. One was Rise Up Amber Nest, which is a new one for next year. Kind of a mini climber is what they call it, but it's essentially a large shrub rose that stays more narrow. So about 5 feet tall, 2 to 3 feet wide. A beautiful yellow, amber, apricot kind of color. I love it. And then there's a Reminiscent Coral, which is a smaller rose, has a large flower, a large saturated coral flower, and then a Litchfield Angel, Litchfield, I'm going to say Litchfield because it sounds better, but it's a David Austin rose. It's like a creamy white, really pretty, and that one gets like 5x4 or 5x5, a little bit bigger. Sharon said, just wondering why you use Biotone rather than Rose Tone, because at this point, well, when I plant anything brand new, I always use Biotone. And also, like this time of year, I don't want to promote foliar growth, and that's not what Biotone is about. Biotone is about creating good root growth and creating a really established plant right from the gate. If you can do that, that's better for the plant. And those roots, under the soil surface during the winter, even though everything up top looks dead, those roots, even though they're slower, they're still active down there. And I think it's a really good thing to have some food for them to feed on. And then also they kind of have a little bit on board for next season. We will come in with Rose Tone though next season, and I think that's more of an appropriate fertilizer for things that are already planted in your landscape. Michelle said, do you put drippers in as you plant in your bigger gardens? So usually after I'm done, Paul follows right behind me and puts all the drip in. He's kind of like the master of the drip. One of you guys suggested that we follow Paul around one day and film kind of a day in the life of what Paul does here. Let us know if you think that would be interesting, because we thought that was a really fun idea, and I think he would be game for it, as long as he didn't have to talk in front of a camera, which I wouldn't ask him to do that if he's uncomfortable doing that, but I think he would be more than happy to have camera set up just capturing what he does throughout the day. So yeah, let us know. Lydia said, what kind of Arborvitae do you have? We've got North Pole for the most part as our screening plant. They grow 10 to 15 feet tall, 3 to 5 feet wide. They very much so need consistent water. That's the thing about those. I think they're a shallow-rooted plant. We noticed behind, and you probably noticed too in all of our vegetable garden videos where we're working in the raised beds, the ones right behind that garden, like they suffered this year, but everything from on either side of them look nice and green. And we figured that that's because the ones behind the vegetable garden, they do have a drip line running to them, as well as everything else. Everyone, all the rest of the other arbs have drips too, but they also receive runoff water either from the grass on the one side, that has the willow in it. Those sprinklers go, those arbs are getting extra water from that. And then on the other side, we have drip line running throughout our whole west side flower beds, and it slopes down. So those arbs are getting extra from that. But the ones in the vegetable garden don't get any extra. So we figured, I think we need to bump up what they're getting. So we ran another line. We were supplementally hitting them with the hose too. We're hoping that next year they just kind of pop out of whatever their funk. They're no water funk. Matthew said, I have a question. I watch your videos daily. You're a highlight of my day. I really want to find similar concrete/stone planters as you. How can I find unique stone planters? I struggle to find providers in my area. Any advice on purchasing stone planters? How do you get yours? My parents have carried Unique Stone. That's how I knew about them. They've carried Unique Stone for a lot of years. You can get on Unique Stone's website and put in your zip code in the retailer locator, and they'll tell you who carries their stuff closest to you. Depending on how much you want, there is like an order minimum, and I don't know what that is. If you get
it's low.
I didn't think it was.
It feels low
for concrete. So a lot of times, if you get with your local garden center, someone who carries containers and fountains and stuff like that, even if they're not carrying Unique Stone, you might just let them know about Unique Stone, and then if they're willing to put in an order and carry some of their things, and you can kind of tack on to their order. They don't ship to residences. It needs to go to a business. What is that rumble?
It's a big Kubota.
The excavator that was parked
yeah.
there. I wonder what he's picking up with that.
Well, we asked him to take out those lilacs.
Oh, yeah. dang. It's like the floor is rumbling.
Yeah.
Laura said, all these roses have thorns, right? Yes, all of them have thorns. I know I was not using gloves, but if you get them from the bottom of the rose plant, you can kind of find a spot that doesn't have thorns, and I can get the container off, and I don't really handle the top of the rose plant very much. Peace Now said, when I see over your shoulder to those newish houses, do you have plans to plant tall trees to block their intrusion? They bother me for you. You know what? They actually don't bother me too much at all. They're all such nice people that solves a lot of issues right there. They're all really good neighbors. They're all quiet. We, wave over the fence and that sort of thing. We didn't really think about it when we went in with the plan.
The arbs will block.
They will.
The arbs will eventually grow up and kind of block them. And then from the house, we'll have enough coverage to where you won't be able to see them from the house eventually.
The cut garden, they will be able to see. But next year, you know how I grew in the maze garden, the big sunflower wall? I'm going to do that in both quadrants next year. Probably just have big, tall.
I wouldn't worry about that. I mean, if you want to do it because you want to do it, I wouldn't do that because you want to block anything, because it's such a temporary block.
It is a temporary, but it's pretty.
In hindsight, yeah, the sunflowers look nice. But in hindsight, we probably should have done a mixed border, the size of that road at least.
We've talked about eliminating that lane.
We were running into issues though, because you wanted your cut flower garden to be a good size, and we needed that road to go through the property.
Right.
And it needed to kind of line up with the current road that we had. Mm-hmm. So instead of making the cut flower garden smaller, we just ended up putting that road there.
We could have made the grass section a lot smaller. We could have looped the grass.
You kind of need the grass sections though.
Yeah.
So you need that space. If you didn't have that empty space, it would have felt too tight.
Yeah, probably would have. Mm-hmm. Yeah, so it's a possibility. We thought about, once the grass pathways are established around the garden, there will be access to the whole thing from any side from those grass pathways. We've thought maybe we should tape off that lane on that side and see how much of a pain it is to not have it there.
Yeah.
And if we find that, I feel like we'll need it there, because we do drive our trucks around there quite often, and I don't really want to drive big equipment over the grass or trucks on the grass, that sort of thing. I don't know. Emily said, how did you adjust your drip system during this time of year? I want to start cutting back on watering, but like you, I'm planting new plants, so I want to make sure they're getting enough water. At this time of year, you just have to supplement with a hose. A lot of times they'll do it because it's cooling down so much at night. They'll just go off of whatever you're giving them in your flower beds currently. Like right now, I was actually going to talk to you about that. I do think we need to scale back a bit. I think we need to pull some of the drip emitters off of some of the new evergreens too. They've had enough time to establish. Mm-hmm. So we need to pull that and put less water on those. It's just a constant, you guys. And sometimes, like with the Hellebores, I come along with a hose and I just watch those plants. Sometimes you don't need to supplement water them, and sometimes you do. So it's just one of those things. You just have to be a little more hands-on with your new stuff this time of year. Lisa said, it's always amazing to me that you don't hit any of your irrigation tubes. I do.
Sometimes we do.
I do sometimes. How do you know where to put the roses? Did you already know where your irrigation lines were, or did you go back later and make adjustments? We go back later and make adjustments. You'll see maybe in some of the planting parts where maybe they're not sped up, I do use my foot and kind of move some of the compost out of the way just to see if there's a drip line right underneath. One day I hit 2 drip lines in one video, one project video that I was doing. I can't remember which one it was, but I think I showed you, and I thought, what in the world? I'll go months without hitting months.
Months. It's a weird word to say.
Yeah, not months. Without hitting a drip line, and then all of a sudden I'll hit a bunch of them all at the same time. It's weird. But thankfully it's easy to make repairs, super easy. You just have to run and grab the couplers. And we, over the years, have put together, we've showed you our organization system, but the more accidents you have, the more you know what to buy and have on hand. And so we've got a pretty good stock of things if we have breaks. Anyway, guys, that is it for this week's recap video. I think next week we'll probably catch up from the one we missed last week. Yeah, so we'll have one extra video this next week. But anyway, yeah, I hope you guys are having a great day. Have a great week, and we will see you in the next video. Bye.